Imagine you are holding a glass of lethal poison.
Okay, kind of a grim start, but I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Right, just go with it. So as you bring it to your lips, your heart is just filled with the most pure, sincere, beautiful emotion imaginable. You drink it with absolute devotion, hoping with every fiber of your being that it will nourish you.
Right.
What happens? Well, you die anyway. I mean, the poison doesn't care how you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
The universe doesn't care how you feel. Chemistry operates entirely independently of human sincerity.
It is a really jarring thought experiment, honestly, especially because we are just completely immersed in stories that tell us the exact opposite.
Oh, totally.
We idolize passion. We tell each other to, follow your heart like it's this ultimate infallible compass for navigating life. The pure-hearted hero wins simply because their feelings are so sincere.
Like it's a superpower.
Exactly. We treat emotion as a kind of magic that can actually bend physical and metaphysical reality.
But what if that compass is fundamentally broken when it comes to the biggest questions? Like, what if your most intense, sincere, and beautiful emotions are completely useless for reaching life's ultimate truth?
That is the huge question we're tackling today.
It is. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are taking a hard look at the blueprints for success, devotion, and, well, the universe itself. We are exploring a really fascinating excerpt from a 2010 translation of a text called Ultimate Tao Cannot Be Pursued Through Emotion.
Such a great title.
Yeah, it doesn't pull any punches. It's part of a larger collection called The Discourses, written by an author named Feng.
And just for some necessary context for you listening, Feng is the founder of Lifechanyuan. It operates as both a spiritual philosophy and a literal physical community.
Right, which is important to keep in mind.
Definitely. And our mission for this deep dive is not to endorse or validate their specific way of life or take any sides politically or spiritually. We are just here to objectively synthesize the text's core arguments.
Because it is a wild framework to explore.
It really is. We are going to unpack this rigid, fascinating framework the author lays out. It draws this uncompromising line between human emotion and cosmic alignment, making these massive claims about the nature of existence.
Consider this an invitation to step back and just look at your own assumptions. So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we can understand why emotion supposedly fails us, we first have to understand what exactly we are trying to achieve here.
Right. What is the end goal?
Exactly. The text constantly refers to something called the ultimate Tao, and it starts with a foundational concept. It says the ultimate Tao is one, yet it manifests in countless paths. And then the unity of these myriad paths returns to the one.
On the surface, I mean, that sounds like a classic, slightly abstract philosophical paradox. The many are one and the one is many.
Yeah, it's a little dense.
It can be really difficult to visualize what that actually means for a living, breathing organism.
But the author actually provides this incredibly grounded, relatable analogy to help visualize it. The human body. Think about your own body for a second. As an entity, it is one unified thing. It's you. But if you zoom in microscopically, it is divided into all these different, highly specialized systems.
Right, you've got the organs, the nervous system, all of that.
Exactly. You have the 5 organs, the hair, the bones, the blood vessels. And the liver doesn't operate like the lungs. A bone cell functions on fundamentally different mechanical principles than, say, a brain cell.
Because they have different jobs.
Yeah, they each have their own distinct paths, as the text puts it. But on a macro level, all of those countless microscopic paths return to the unified Tao, the overarching operating system of the human body.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mind-bending scale that Feng applies to this concept. The text asserts that the ultimate Tao is the path of unchanging amidst all changes.
Unchanging amidst all changes. That's a big claim.
It's huge. The micro elements of the universe, like the people, the planets, the eras, they're constantly shifting, vibrating, transforming. But the macro structure, the ultimate truth, it does not alter with the passage of time or shifts in space. It is entirely rigid.
So it's basically a structural absolute.
Steadfast and unmoved, according to the translation. The text describes this way of the greatest creator as remaining constant from the ancient past to the distant future. It claims this structure spans from 20 parallel worlds to 36-dimensional spaces.
Wait, 36 dimensions? That's intense.
I know. We are talking about a set of rules so fundamental that they apply across dimensional realities. Even concepts like love are subject to this rigid architecture.
Wow.
The text argues that the structural reality of love remains mathematically unchanged whether you are looking at insects, animals, humans, or even gods and Buddhas. The underlying architecture of existence just simply does not budge.
Which brings us to the central conflict of the source material. If the ultimate truth of the universe is this grand, this mathematical, and this unchanging, our natural human instinct is to pursue it with our deepest feelings.
Right, because that's all we know how to do.
Exactly. We think, well, if I just love enough, if I am just devoted enough, I will align with the universe. But the text aggressively challenges that instinct. It explicitly says the ultimate Tao cannot be pursued through emotion.
It shuts it down completely.
It does. Think about it like trying to build a massive skyscraper, using nothing but pure enthusiasm.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Passion is great. You need motivation to fund the project and get people onto the construction site. But without physics, without structural engineering, and an understanding of load-bearing walls, that building is going to collapse.
Yeah, you can't just feel your way into a structurally sound building.
You really can't. Gravity just does not care about your passion.
And the author echoes that exact logic with a series of stark, almost blunt examples in the text. We already mentioned the poison at the start.
Right. The poison doesn't care.
Yeah, and the text goes on to point out that no matter how sincere a mouse acts toward a cat, the cat will still eat it. It is their structural relationship. Emotion cannot override biology.
It's harsh, but it's true.
Or, mapping back to your engineering idea, the text notes that no matter how much deep affection you invest in a car, if you don't actually master driving skills and the rules of the road, you are going to get into a crash.
Okay, I have to push back here a little bit on behalf of the listener.
Yeah.
Because the poison, the cat, the car, those are physical realities. We can all agree that physics and biology don't care about our feelings.
A fair point.
But the text applies this to things we assume are entirely built on emotion. It says, no matter how deep the affection, a marriage can still end in divorce. It says parents can love their children infinitely, but the children might still turn out unfilial.
Yeah, it goes there.
It even says kowtowing to a master and offering incense will make a disciple a sage. Honestly, this sounds incredibly cynical. Are we really saying that a mother's love or a lifelong spiritual devotion means nothing structurally?
I get why you'd ask that. It definitely reads as a cold splash of water.
Yeah.
But when you dig into the framework, the text isn't actually anti-emotion. It is rigorously defining emotion's limits.
Okay, how so?
It posits that emotion is a reaction to structure, not a foundational law itself. You can have the most beautiful paint job on a house, but if the foundation is cracked, the house falls.
Okay, so the emotion is the paint.
Exactly. The text argues that no matter how much you invest emotionally in a family, a nation, a religion, or a political party, that emotion alone cannot guarantee your freedom, your happiness, or a future in heaven.
Actually, the text uses the phrase scattered sand to describe this, doesn't it?
Yes, that's a brilliant metaphor from the author.
You can have a group of people deeply affectionate toward one another. They are like grains of sand in a bucket touching close, seemingly unified. But the second the wind blows, the second there is external pressure or internal hardship, they just disperse.
Right, because nothing is fundamentally binding them together at a structural level. Emotion fluctuates. One day you feel deeply in love, the next day you are irritated by the way your partner chews their food.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right, so if your entire connection is based on how you feel in the moment, your connection is incredibly fragile. Structure, however, remains.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if emotion is just the fuel, but not the steering wheel, what actually guides us to this ultimate Tao?
That is the million-dollar question.
If feelings won't get us to the truth, and they won't even keep a family together, what does the text actually offer as the solution?
The author introduces a highly specific, almost mechanical concept. They call it resonating in frequency. The text declares this is the only correct and effective method to attain the ultimate Tao.
Resonating in frequency.
Yeah. And to understand this, we need to introduce a crucial piece of the author's vocabulary, the non-material structure of life. Life with a capital L.
We should probably define that clearly, because it does sound like some heavy jargon.
It is basically the hinge of the whole philosophy. According to the text, every living being has a physical body, but they also have an invisible architecture of consciousness, their non-material structure.
So like a soul.
Kind of, but think of it more like your spiritual code or blueprint. It encompasses your core values, your worldview, your moral operating system. And this non-material structure is constantly broadcasting a frequency.
That makes perfect sense, actually. The way I picture this is literally like tuning an old-school radio dial.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
If your favorite station is broadcasting on 100.1 FM and your internal dial is set to 99.5, you are going to get static. It doesn't matter how much you want to hear the music.
Right, desire doesn't fix the signal.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how sincerely you stare at the radio or how much emotion you pour into the speaker.
Yeah.
Unless you mechanically tune your receiver to the exact same frequency as the broadcast, the connection physically cannot happen.
That radio analogy perfectly explains the text's view on human connection. The author argues that if two people resonate in frequency, meaning their non-material structures share fundamental views on life, morality, and the universe, then distance and background become entirely irrelevant.
They just click.
They do. They could be separated by oceans, they could have entirely different life experiences, but the moment they interact, they are intimately connected. Because their dials are tuned to the exact same station, there is zero static.
But I guess the tragic flip side of that is also true. According to the text, without that resonance, even lovers who pledge eternal commitment will eventually part ways.
Because the static wins.
Yeah, if their foundational frequencies don't match, say, if one values accumulation of wealth and the other values aesthetic minimalism, all the romantic emotion in the world won't keep the relationship together. The static eventually overwhelms the signal and they separate.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the author makes an extreme metaphysical leap.
Okay, brace yourselves.
This resonating in frequency isn't just a metaphor for finding a compatible partner or making good friends. The text claims that the very structure of your existence, your literal form in the universe, is dictated by what you tune your frequency to.
Which means what exactly?
It states that if we resonate in consciousness and thinking with gods, we ourselves become gods. If we resonate in frequency with Buddhas, we become Buddhas.
Hold on, I need to pause you there because the text doesn't just talk about gods and Buddhas. It says quite literally that if a human resonates in frequency with a pig, one becomes a pig.
Yes, it absolutely says that.
If one resonates with a dog, one becomes a dog. I mean, is Whiffing talking about literal reincarnation here, or is this just a harsh metaphor for living a gluttonous or subservient life?
Within the cosmology of the text, it is totally literal. Form follows frequency. The author is stating a stark formulation of cosmic cause and effect.
So you literally become the animal.
If your non-material structure, your core values, your daily thoughts, your actions aligns with the operating principles of an animal purely driven by instinct and appetite, you are tuning your dial to that specific dimensional frequency. When your physical body dies, your non-material structure naturally gravitates to the form that matches its broadcast. You don't get cast down as a punishment. You simply manifest as the frequency you tuned yourself to.
Which completely reframes the idea of spiritual progression. It's not about begging a higher power for favor.
Not at all.
It's not the disciple offering incense and crying tears of devotion hoping a master will magically turn them into a sage. It's about doing the internal, often unglamorous structural work to change your own dial. You have to adopt the operating principles of the realm you actually want to inhabit.
And this raises a really important question. I mean, it is one thing to talk about tuning your internal dial to the frequency of a Buddha when you are meditating alone in a quiet room.
Right, when nobody is bothering you.
Exactly. It is entirely different to see how this highly theoretical, metaphysical philosophy operates when you apply it to a real living human community. How does this survive the friction of living with 50 other people?
That is the ultimate stress test. Taking it from the laboratory of the cosmos down to the laboratory of life. And the text actually brings up a specific real-world example of this, Lifechanyuan's second home.
Yes, their physical community.
The author points to this place and basically says, look, here is the proof of concept. Based on the source material, how exactly does this philosophy function day to day for these people?
Well, the success of this second home, according to the text, is due to the fact that it is maintained strictly by shared values, not by emotion.
Oh, like the scattered sand thing again.
Exactly. When a normal community faces a dispute, they often rely on emotion to fix it. Someone apologizes, people kiss and make up, they rely on affection to smooth things over.
But affection fluctuates.
Yes, it does. In the second home, the text claims they replace the fluctuating glue of emotion with the concrete binding of shared frequency.
So they all agreed on the foundational rules, like the structural engineering, before building the house.
Precisely. Because the community resonates on this shared frequency regarding life, morality, and the universe, interpersonal disputes aren't solved by emotional maneuvering.
They don't just guilt trip each other.
No, they are solved by referring back to the structural frequency they all agreed upon. The text claims that because of this mechanism, the community has a unique property. It can scale infinitely.
Which is wild. The author says it doesn't matter if there are 10 people, 100 people, 100,000, or even 100 million people.
Right.
As long as the frequency is matched, the community will remain warm, harmonious, and orderly. And I mean, anyone who has ever tried to plan a group dinner for more than 6 people knows how impossible that sounds.
It sounds like an impossible utopia, and the author actually knows that. The text immediately follows that grand claim of infinite scaling with a pretty severe warning.
Oh, what's the catch?
It states that the moment there is even a slight deviation in frequency, like the moment someone starts tuning to a different station or prioritizing a different set of values, illusions, deceit, and conflicts will inevitably arise.
So the static starts creeping in.
Exactly. The text uses the dramatic phrase feudal warlordism to describe what happens when a community fragments. Without the overarching frequency, people retreat into emotional factions, basically backing whoever they like best rather than what is structurally true.
So what does this all mean? We've spent this whole time hearing about how emotion is mechanically ineffective.
We have.
It can't build a skyscraper, it won't keep you from being eaten by a cat, it won't get you to heaven, and it can't even keep a community from turning into feudal warlords.
It sounds pretty bleak when you list it out like that.
It does. It almost sounds like the ultimate goal of this philosophy is to become a cold, calculating, frequency-matching robot, devoid of all feeling. Is the text ultimately saying that emotion is a bad thing?
That is the crucial nuance we really have to hit here. The text anticipates that exact misinterpretation and clarifies its stance explicitly at the end. It declares that emotion is absolutely necessary.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, in fact, it uses a biological analogy, describing emotion as being like blood in the human body.
So you literally cannot live without it.
You cannot live a day without it. The author goes as far as to say, with emotion there is heaven, without emotion there is hell. A life devoid of feeling, devoid of affection and warmth, is just a hellish existence.
That makes a lot of sense.
However, and this is the hinge of the entire deep dive today, you cannot enter heaven on emotion alone.
I see the distinction.
To get through the door, you must resonate in frequency with the beings and the order of heaven. Emotion is what makes the experience of heaven beautiful once you are there. It's the blood pumping through the living body.
But the body has to exist first.
Right. It is the structural resonance, the frequency that builds the body and gets you through the gate in the first place.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. Having a beautifully decorated, cozy living room is wonderful. That's the emotion, that's the warmth, the blood in the body.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you don't have the key to unlock the front door of the house, which is the frequency, you're just standing out in the freezing cold, vividly imagining how nice the living room feels.
That's a perfect analogy. You have to have both, but you have to use them for their correct, specific purposes.
Yeah, you can't unlock a deadbolt with a warm feeling. You need the structurally correct key.
And that key is forged by perfecting your non-material structure, by aligning your daily actions and core values with the unchanging Tao.
Well, to you listening, as we wrap up this journey today, let's just take a moment to summarize what we've explored. We started with our default human tool sincere emotion.
The compass we all rely on.
Right. And we looked at how, while it is undeniably beautiful and absolutely necessary for a rich life, it is mechanically ineffective for changing the fundamental structure of reality.
It's just paint on the house.
Exactly. Whether you are trying to build a lasting relationship, organize a harmonious community, or align yourself with the cosmos, passion alone simply isn't enough. To truly align with what the text calls the ultimate Tao, it requires the rigorous, disciplined work of resonating in frequency.
Which is hard work.
It is. It requires matching your internal dial to the shared values, principles, and objective order of the reality you actually want to inhabit.
And that leads to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over that builds on the text's concluding instruction. The author states that the ultimate Tao must be achieved by perfecting that non-material structure of life we talked about.
The invisible architecture.
Yes. So ask yourself this. If every thought, value, and belief you hold is constantly emitting a frequency from your invisible architecture like a radio tower broadcasting into the world 24/7, What exactly are you broadcasting right now?
That's a heavy question.
It is. And perhaps more importantly, if you look at the people, the situations, and the environments that are currently drawn into your daily life, what does that tell you about the frequency you are unknowingly tuned to?
Wow. That is a deeply confronting question that will definitely stick with you long after this audio finishes. It has been an incredible exploration of the ultimate Tao today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material.
It was a pleasure.
Keep questioning your assumptions, keep examining your foundations, and most importantly, keep checking your frequency.